you and I have probably both hired people from large organizations to come into a small entrepreneurial organization, right? That's the molecule that's in this very rigid place. As soon as you take that senior executive and you put them in a 50-person startup, guess what happens? Tie flies off, jacket flies off, and they're pounding the table about some crazy idea, just like the rest of everybody. That's the point about the molecule dropping it in the liquid rather than the ice. And that's the big point. It's about the structure. It's about the systems. Your point about the soldier on the battlefield, absolutely. When you create a life or death situation, you better innovate or you are dead. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to innovate. So it's about the systems that you place around people, not so much about, you know, CEOs saying, all right, everybody innovate, innovate. Let me put some pictures of birds on the wall and, you know, everybody hold hands and sing Kumbaya. No, it's about what do I measure? What do I reward? What are the incentives in place? How do I ask the right questions? And you need to ask different questions of the artist and different questions of the soldiers and understand the failure mode in innovation, as you, John, know incredibly well. The failure mode in innovation inside organizations is never, never in the supply of new ideas. You put 10 people in a room.
With what you're saying, Safi. So I love how you framed everything, and the metaphors are powerful, and they enter my brain and they sort of like settle in and just start cooking and building a fire and whatever. But your metaphor of water, you know, becoming different phases requires scientific understanding. So you're speaking a common language with me. And I think all leaders, whether they came from startup or from big corporation, they know that speaking the language of the entity you enter is table stakes, the science per se. And I think that the only problem with learning the science of organization is it takes time. And oftentimes a new leader doesn't have time to be able to understand that. So like think of Safi, think of a leader, you know, who was at the same place for like 10 years, left for 8 years and came back. Can you talk about that advantage for a second?
You know, I mean, absolutely agree with you. You have to understand the language of the people that you're speaking to. So I'll give you an example. I work with a lot of private sector companies, technology and media and entertainment, but also the military. So a lot of folks in the different military service branches have reached out to me, an intelligence community, and I spent a lot of time with them. I was just on the phone with them today. And on the one hand, of course, the language I use is specifically tailored, but it's actually fascinating when you can cross-pollinate the language. And I'll give you an example. If you want to launch a new project internally, one of the things that I get to is borrowed from my discussions with the military and the Navy specifically, and that is get quickly to boats in the water. What does that mean? It's exactly your point, John. You can talk about theory until you're blue in the face and no one gives a damn.
But have you served the military, Safi?
Oh, no, I didn't. Not at all. I spend a lot of time working with them.
No, I understand. But my point is that if you're a veteran,
yes,
and you have gone to industry, when you talk with the Army, it's a powerful thing.
Oh, yeah.
When you bring that culture that you had and you change culture, change phase or whatever, and you come back, it's like magic.
Oh, that's using the right words, the right metaphors, the right language is very powerful with customers, with partners, with all of those relationships. Right. And that's an example. I use get quickly to boats in the water means don't worry about the theories, run experiments, put the actual boat. Don't talk about how you're going to build the boat, actually build a small boat and show it to people. That works so much better than talking about, actually happens very often in both large organizations and in the in private sector and in the public sector. They talk about how they're going to do something, like with the Navy with unmanned. I'm not saying anything out of school here, but there's a big task force. How do we create the next generation of unmanned weaponry? Well, you could create PowerPoints and write a PhD thesis on how to organize, or you could give 5 people a little bit of money and create something. That second way that actually goes in the water. It's the same thing. That's what I mean by get quickly to boats in the water. And John, that gets to kind of your point. You want to choose your language and choose your metaphors carefully. And actually, the be a gardener, not a Moses resonates. Love your artists and soldiers equally resonates because so many people, if they've grown up one way, and I'm curious about you because you've grown up with this artist designer mentality. If you grow up one way as seeing yourself as this visionary artist, like for example, the early version of Steve Jobs 1.0, his first time in Apple, you fall in love with the artist and you, in your organization, signal that you love the artist, which is what he did the first time when he said everybody is working on the Apple III and the Lisa project is a bozo, and demotivated that group and people started leaving and Apple almost fell apart. They launched the Macintosh, which was a great publicity campaign, but it was a terrible product. It overheated. It was underpowered, and it sales tanked, and the company almost went bankrupt because Jobs focused on the signaling of loving his artist and demotivating his soldiers. When he
that's such a I'm sorry, that is such a trivialization of the Jobs kind of legend as someone who was unusually facile at understanding technology. And I think what's interesting is that he understood that technology could be an art. Do you remember his thing for the Smithsonian where he said over and over that the computer is like a bicycle for the mind? And I think that ability to capture the power of computation was unusual in, to your point, an artist.
No, that was fantastic. That was when he came back after he had learned, spending a lot of time with Ed Catmull at Pixel, who had really mastered that. After he came back the second time, one of the first, so I spent quite a while with John Rubinstein, who created the iPod for him and worked at Next for him. And we spent a lot of time talking about this, but after he came back the second time and, Next did not go very well. It was a beautiful artistic product. I remember those Next cubes, but the company, it was a failure as a company. Except for the operating system, which they built, which was why it got acquired and why he came back to Apple the second time. But when he got back to Apple the second time, exactly what you said. One of the first things he did was promote Johnny Ive, who was this legendary designer who created all these beautiful Apple products. But the second thing he did was recruit a guy from Compaq Computer whose nickname at Compaq was the Attila the Hun of inventory.